Facebook have just announced changes to their music policy to take effect from October the 1st. And if you fail to follow their rules, then you and your music and your profile will be deleted permanently. Okay, whoa. Let's start from the beginning, because this is not strictly true. But what I am seeing on Facebook over the last couple of weeks is a lot of panic and outrage and fear from musicians who think that their profile is going to be deleted or they're not going to be able to post music to their profile, which isn't the case. Meanwhile, Facebook have not helped, because the statements they've put out in classic Facebook way are open to interpretation, and also they're slightly ambiguous. So we are going to unpick this, but this is not as big as you would think. In fact, these things have been in place now since 2018, except on October the 1st, they look like they're going to be enforcing them slightly more. So let's unpick what Facebook have actually said when they are updating their terms of service and their new policies. So Facebook are updating its terms of service, but they do this all of the time because things change. Things are constantly changing in the world. For example, technology changes, and therefore how we police things also changes. Also, our consumption habits change, and therefore because our consumption habits change, our content delivery changes. So all of these things change and policing it changes. So Facebook is constantly playing catch up, trying to not only tell us what we are and aren't allowed to do, but also how they're going to police it. The problem is, when they deliver these terms of service, they sound quite robotic. And then, being open to interpretation, we can start to panic on what we are and aren't allowed to do. So an example of this is one of the phrases that they use in their terms, which is, "You may not use videos on our products to create a music listening experience." That sounds pretty cut and dry. That basically says you're not allowed to add your music to our products. So therefore, that's it. It's the end game. But they could have phrased that in a better way, because that is not what they meant. So the two areas Facebook's mostly talking about here is, number one, not competing as an audio service like Spotify, and also not trying to compete with the likes of YouTube in certain access, because every single platform has different licensing laws. They have different deals that they've set up with different labels and who own the masters. And copyright is a huge big deal at the moment. So the main thing Facebook is saying is, hey, you're not allowed to use someone else's material for your gain. You're just not allowed. We know that. We've known that forever, except there's been this fair use and this grey area of what we can and can't use. Whereas Facebook and YouTube, they're saying, no, it's not a grey area, it's just we haven't policed it that much. You've never been allowed to rip someone else's music off. You've never been allowed to do someone else's music as a cover without the right license. The difference is we haven't policed it, because unless it's flagged up by the master owner, we've kind of left it go. Whereas now, as technology changes, as things get easier to police, and as laws get clamped down on, they are having to take this up in a much more minute, detailed way to be able to prosecute where necessary. Also, because what's changed around us, let's look at this. The last 6 months, we have been in and out of lockdowns all around the world. And what that has meant is the music industry is all but being destroyed from an events point of view. So we've evolved and we said, don't worry, we're going to go online and we're going to do our gigs, we're going to do our performances online. Fantastic. The whole industry has shifted. The problem is then things like tip jars have been introduced, or Facebook donations have been introduced. Great. Everything's starting to shift and evolve. But what if I'm playing your songs so that I can make money? And then you're saying, well, hang on, that's my money, that's my music, that's my songs, I made it and you're benefiting. That's wrong. Absolutely, that's wrong. And so that is what Facebook is saying. It's saying you are now not allowed to benefit from someone else's work. And then once again, we are into the area of fair use and grey area. And everyone says, oh, but it's a very big grey area. It's not really a very big grey area. For example, I can take a video of myself performing my own song that I own, and I can post it on social media. And Facebook will 100% not delete it. It will not give me a copyright strike because it's mine. I can do that. That is not a problem at all. What I'm not allowed to do is I'm not allowed to perform your song if you don't want me to, because that way I'm benefiting from your music. Think of it from a gig, for example. I can play a gig, it's my gig, I'm in the gig, I own all of the master, I post that to Facebook. But what if I go to one of my favorite bands and I stick my phone in the air and I record half of their gig, or all of their gig, or a song of their gig? And then I say, oh, I really enjoyed that, and I post that to my Facebook. Is that allowed? Well, technically no. That is actually illegal because it's not yours. You don't own it. So we are constantly doing these kind of, well, it's kind of okay. It's kind of okay. That doesn't really count. Well, not really. It's just that it's not being policed, so therefore people are getting away with it. So the copyright means I am not allowed to play the master of your song. I'm also not really allowed to do a cover of your song, but I'm not even really allowed to properly reference it. For example, I'm playing my song and in it are the same chords to your song, and then I start playing your song just for a line or two of a chorus to reference that within my song. I'm not allowed to do any of those things unless I have your permission, including playing a video of your gig or your performance without your permission. Now, where this goes wrong at the moment is there are a lot of people who are DJs, for example, and they are doing an hour or 2 hour live session where they are DJing music. Now, if they're DJing music and they're DJing your song and they're getting money from it through streaming or from tip jars or donations, then Facebook's saying, that's not right, because they're not DJing their own songs, they're DJing other people's material. Again, that's copyright law, that's not allowed. Now then, away from copyright law, the other thing that's been flagged up is that Facebook does not want you to put your album online in audio with a static picture, which you see quite often on YouTube. So there's the album artwork, it's a picture, that will be the video, and it will be a static picture, and I'm gonna put the entire album onto a video onto Facebook. Well, firstly, why in God's name would you want to do that? Why would anybody be sitting there saying, do you know why I listen to my music? Facebook. It's just a weird thing. And I'm sure Facebook Music is coming, but at the moment it's not there. So if you put a video or multiple songs in a video with one static picture, Facebook says that's not why we're here. That's not what we're here to do. So if you want to stream music, that's where you go across to Spotify or parts of YouTube, because YouTube has got YouTube Music, but we have not got Facebook Music, so that's not why people come here. So don't do that. And from my point of view of someone who's helping artists and musicians build an audience, build a fan base, and being able to monetize that, I would also say, don't do that anyway. Like, why would you do that? Why would you take 10 or 12 tracks and just represent it with one album artwork? I just don't see what value you are giving to someone else by doing that in the first place anyway. So I don't see that as a big deal when it comes to music, Facebook Music, or Facebook's licensing changes. So what does this mean you can do? Pretty much everything you were doing, as long as it's yours. If it's your music, play it. If it's your song, perform it. If you want to put your gig live, great. The issue that Facebook is saying is if you don't own it, you can't really do this. And whilst people can look back 5 years ago and say loads of people have built their careers on this, that doesn't necessarily make it right. It just means they were a victim of their time. They were allowed to do that back then because they could get away with it and they benefited, but the loopholes are changing. So you're not technically allowed to benefit from someone else's music. And I think we can all agree there's probably some merit in that. If you make something amazing, but I'm getting the money, I don't think that's fair. So Facebook is just trying to do what's right. And whilst we can all hate Facebook for all of their changes, in this instance, they are just trying to fulfill copyright law. So this is not the time to stop live streaming. In fact, this is the time to build your audience, because at some point we will be allowed out to go and do events. And when we can do gigs and concerts and events, Everyone is going to need each other. You are going to need your audience and they are going to need you. And now is the time to build that audience and turn them into fans. And I love this stuff. We talk about this stuff and debate this stuff every single day in DK Music Business Academy. And this is a big one. So if you want to come and be a part of DK Music Business Academy, today only, I am going to offer a free social media audit. I will go through your socials and I will give you a bunch of ideas. If you join the annual plan, the link is down below. So if you want to come and join me, work with me more directly and a bunch of other amazing musicians, as well as have hours and hours and hours of content, which is added every single week, then it's just the best resource online. Come and join me in DK Music Business Academy. Otherwise, do me a favor, hit that like, hit that subscribe, and I'll see you soon.